Jene Elzie, it's so great to see you.
It's good to see you.
Yeah, thank you. It's been about a year since our last interview, and I know lots happened since then. Love for you to share what you've been up to, where you are now, and how did you get here?
Sure. So it's really been a year of evolution for me. After 5 years, the big change for me is after 5 years with the NBA, I now have moved on to another job. I am at a company called Athletes First Partners, and we are the exclusive sales and marketing agency for the National Basketball Players Association, so the Players Union. So somehow I managed to still stay in basketball, but just in a different angle. And I think for me, a lot of this was why I say it's an evolution. Was a lot of it for me was about understanding when I was ready to take the next step, exactly the steps that I needed to do to lay that plan out. So when the opportunity came, it really just fell into place. I knew that I was looking for something where I could really feel like I could make a difference. I think the first step for me when I knew that I was ready to grow to the next step was really not just to take the first thing that came along, but to really understand what my passion and my purpose was. A lot of this for me was about just taking a risk and taking the leap. Because obviously a lot of people would say, I can't believe you've gone from this, amazing brand. You've gone into this new space where I haven't worked in an agency role before. I haven't worked at a company like this before, and we're really just building this from the ground up and starting with a blank space. So for me, that's what I knew my passions are. I love building. I love strategizing. I love working, obviously in sports. I knew I wanted to do that. And so everything for me just came together. As soon as I put it out into the universe that this is what I wanted for my next step to be, it just kind of flowed from there. So I did a lot of networking in the beginning. I talked to people in all kinds of spaces. I was looking at, venture capital. I was looking at agencies. I was looking at, more traditional brands. And then the right thing came along, and that was Athletes First Partners.
So can you talk a little bit more about how that connection was made? How did you meet up with Athletes First?
So a lot of it was through my existing network. I found when I first started thinking about what my next move was, the biggest challenge, and I think a lot of people had this challenge, is I would just have a lot of informational interviews and not really be clear on what I wanted, other than I'm looking for this title, or I'm looking for this kind of role, or I'm applying for this job. I actually kind of flipped it and reversed it. And what I did was I sat down and I said, what are the most important things to me? From an environmental standpoint, from a career standpoint. I knew I liked working in smaller groups. I very much have an entrepreneurial spirit, mainly because I come from the Bay Area where that's fostered. I also knew that I wanted to stay in New York, which is very important to me. I knew I wanted to be in a job that I felt like we could really create something, and we're going out and selling an amazing product and something that really inspired me. And through the work at NBA, I became very inspired by players in particular, and the impact that they have with not just brands, but more importantly with people around the world. So the fact that I now get to do that on the other, from a different angle is just, I couldn't ask for more.
That's amazing. So it was really very reflective on your part in terms of truly thinking about what your priorities are, and really kind of articulating what those are. Because a lot of times we have a rough idea, but we don't actually sit down, articulate it, and then document it. And it's not so clear necessarily, but it sounds like you went through a very reflective process.
Yes.
To prioritize.
Yes. It started out with just what my purpose is. And I know that sounds kind of very general and generic, but the reality is I had to spend a lot of time doing the work to know what really drives me. And what drives me is inspiration. I love to be inspired, and that sounds like a very sort of lofty statement, but the reality is, for me, working in whether it's divisions or companies or environments, where it's about discovering new things, discovering new people, discovering new ideas. That's what I love. And I love to help other people also realize their goals. So I'm not necessarily the person that's going to start my own company, because that is really not, I don't have an interest in that. But I love to figure out how you take a new product, for example, or you take a new idea and you really bring it to life. That's what inspires me and that's what drives me. So after that, it became very easy to figure out which opportunities to say no to and which opportunity to say yes to.
As a result of this process, then, do you feel that you came out with a clear personal vision statement?
Yes, absolutely.
How would you describe your vision for yourself?
I would say that for me, it's quite simple. Finding inspiration and energy in what I do, and if I don't find it, then let it go.
That's very powerful.